YouTube.
All right.
And we will start at shortly after 2 p.m.
Sounds good. I was
Thanks.
hoping I could get a link to the live stream just so that maybe if I'm permitted, I could answer some in the chat. Thank you very much.
Tanisha, do you live in the DC area?
I do.
Nice. The area?
I do.
All right. Mute this right here. Yeah. Oh, Sim is here. Hey, Sim. I'm glad you could make it. And thanks for the hype post.
Hi, Ozzy. I'm looking forward to the presentation.
Yay. So there isn't going to be a presentation of sorts, just me asking questions about, answering questions about what I do on a day-to-day basis and just, telling more people about application security, because people hear about the cybersecurity field and they're like, and the first thing that comes to mind is penetration testing, risk and compliance, and that's it. So not so many people know about application security. So this is actually really nice. And I like talking about Appsec, so cool. This is just perfect. So I'm glad to see you here, Sim.
Yeah, me too.
All right, it is 2 o'clock, so we can go ahead and get started. I am very excited. We were on a break for a little while, but we are back with another Bring a Hacker Workday. And our guest today is Ozzy A. She is a security Appsec, application security engineer that is working, I think, in the Atlanta area. And I'm happy to have her here to talk about, her path to world domination, how she's got to where she's at, and what the day-to-day looks like for, application security engineer, based on her experience. So welcome, Ozzy. I'm happy to have you. And please, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I had no idea I was on a path to world domination until you just said so. So thank you very much for that glowing commentary. So my full name is Ozioma Agamba, but just because lots of people have trouble pronouncing my last name, I'm like, I'm gonna make it easy for y'all because I'm nice. So just call me Ozzy, and you can refer to my last name as A. You won't ever need to use that, I guess, because it's really hard, and I totally understand that. I'm lazy too. So um a brief summary of how I got here. Um, right from when I was a kid, I've always liked, I'm always that person who I'm like, oh, this really cute, interesting thing looks really nice. How does it work? And this is almost always limited to like electrical gadgets, electronics and stuff. So we had one of those hunchback desktop computers, the white ones that had Windows 95 running on it, and I was just so preoccupied with the thing. So time came for me to choose a major. I was going to the university, and then I was like, hey, I want to do computer science. This was back home in Nigeria, by the way. And then, of course, I was very young. I didn't know any better. I hadn't done research. All I knew was that I wanted to do computer science. Then my people I looked up to, basically, my mentors, my parents, and they're like, oh no, don't do computer science. Because there's a couple of guys who live down the street from us. They run cyber cafes and they all do computer science and they're like losers. So no. And so that was how I ended up doing something else, kept going down the line of, my preference list until I settled on chemical engineering. So I spent 5 years of my life, my first major chemical engineering, which was a waste of time. I say that everywhere from the bottom of my heart.
not a waste of time.
No, I say that from the perspective of, as soon as I got into university for like the major I did, I met lots of people in computer science, electrical electronics, and then I was like, wow, I think I was a fool to not have stuck to my guns, and then I was like, okay, maybe chemical engineering will not be that bad. Spoiler alert, it was terrible. So I mean, just basically because of the whole curriculum and how we're being, outdated, we're being taught outdated things, instead of what was going on in the current market. So yeah, I mean, I've learned a couple of things from it, but overall, the first thing I say is waste of time. I could have gone for another course, but that was just my experience. So after school, I was just, here hoping, hey, I could probably be a chemical engineer, but that wasn't my luck. I ended up working at a bank. So first year in sales, which sucked. I have a lot of respect for people in sales, but sales is just hard, especially when you're having to walk a couple of miles every day, trying to canvas, drum support from your customers and trying to win new ones with a value offering that you just quite can't see. I mean, sales is not for everybody. It definitely wasn't for me. And so that's why it sucked for me. I applied to transfer to some other back office function. I was sent to the operations team. Part of what they did on that side was to process settlements for, like, you use your card at some other bank, we have to pay the bank, all of those transactions that happen in that process. So we worked in that office function. So I was there for a bit, and then at some point in 2016, there was this ransomware attack in the UK that brought down a lot of hospitals and stuff. And then the governing body for banks in Nigeria then, Central Bank of Nigeria, sent out a memo to everyone saying, hey, you all need to be careful. There's a ransomware attack going on in the UK, and we could be the next targets. So it just got me thinking. I'm like, okay, so this thing that's happening in the UK, that is so far away from us, if the central bank thinks that this is such a serious issue to where we could also be affected, like I was just curious, basically. I just like, okay, so if they think it's such a big deal, let me see what really is this thing about. So I researched news articles about the ransomware attack. Okay, what is a ransomware? How would you combat a ransomware attack? Who are these people that do these things? And that's how I landed upon, the cybersecurity field. At the time, I was also looking to make a career switch. I wanted to go in for a master's degree that would kind of champion, that career switch for me, because I didn't know of any other thing else I could do, or what other activity, what other after work activity I could do to help transition me into such a field. I wasn't sure what that would look like. So it just came at the right time, did all that research, and I came up on cybersecurity. So I was like, hey, this is nice. What if there are schools that also do cybersecurity, like master's programs? And then I did my research, found a couple of good ones in the US. I applied, I got admission. Then that's how I moved to the US in 2017. So I did my master's degree, graduated December of 2018, got my first role working at Macy's in February of 2019. That was my very first role ever in the cybersecurity field. And it took me straight into application security. So my journey has been an interesting one in the sense that when you meet many application security people, they almost always came in from an IT related field or an application or a security adjacent field. Like, let's say this person was a penetration tester, or they were doing governance, risk and compliance, or something related. Or like, as is the common what you see a lot, someone who was formerly a software engineer coming into application security. That's very common. That wasn't my case anyway. So the learning curve for me was really, really steep. However, what was helpful for me was, while I was working at Macy's, I was working with a lot of experienced people. Talking of people who have had like 5 to 15 years of experience in the security field as a whole. So I was learning a lot from them, coupled with the experience that I had from my master's degree. Learning from them, I will walk up to them and be like, hey, what are you working on? Why are you working on this? Why is this important? Okay. So application security was unique to me in the sense that it's not like there weren't too many courses at the time, you could refer to say, hey, these are the things I need to know, as a beginner going into Appsec. Not like the same way you have it for maybe incident response or blue team or like penetration testing. There are lots of courses or certifications or online classes you can take that can kind of prime you for a beginner level, understanding what to expect in each of these specific fields. There wasn't anything like that at the time. So a lot of the things that I learned, I had to learn, by constantly researching online and speaking with other people who were working in the field as well. So it was a unique thing for me, and I struggle with imposter syndrome a lot, because you're working with so many experienced people, and you already understand from the get-go, that, okay, my path definitely wasn't, like most other people's path. Like, hey, I was a software engineer for 10 years. I built a whole server, broke it down, and built 2 more on top of that. That wasn't that for me. All I had going for me was my curiosity and how I just know, like, once my laptop breaks down on me, I know how to fix it. That was all I had going for myself. And that's all from personal experience anyway. And how do you validate that? That is a challenge that actually led me to doing my master's degree. So it was like that all the time. However, I had a supportive team and my manager as well. So every time I walk up to them, like, hey, I was having doubts about this. Like, hey, no, we chose you for this because you have something to bring to the table. Just, hop on 1 or 2 projects that anyone is doing and just ask them. Everyone is willing to teach. Everyone was willing to teach me in that role. So imposter syndrome did hit me for as long as it did, but just because I had that great support system around me, I was able to come out of it in the way I did. And then I found ways that I could contribute, given the little that I had. It's still a struggle. You still have that every now and then, but having a great system like that kind of helps bring you back to earth and, puts you like on solid footing until the next time it comes knocking and you're like, imposter syndrome, away with you. I know what I'm doing now. It's always there. I guess it's something you struggle with just because of the nature of this field. And then there's so many people who know so much. But in the end, when it comes right down to it, it's like, hey, I am like a staff engineer or something. I don't know what I'm doing. It just works. So yeah, so I was at Macy's for a little under 2 years before I moved to my current company at Iterable, which is based in California, San Francisco, but I work remote. So that's why for my profile, it says based in the Atlanta area because I work remote anyway. So my current team here, at Itrable, fantastic, wonderful, same support. Of course, Impostor Syndrome came knocking, but then it was like, boom, away with you. I've got something I'm doing here, so I attribute that to, my previous experience in my former role, having struggled with Impostor Syndrome for so long, not being able to talk about it. I was able to speak about it early on, and then I had people like affirming or supporting and letting me know, hey, no, you're good, do this, do that, do this. So that helped a lot. And that's where I have been since. So I know I said that was a summary, and that was really long, so apologies.
Oh, not a problem at all. So, what is it that you do in your day to day? You talked about like how you can't really find training for application security, but you were able to ask people questions. What does your day to day look like? What are you actually doing? If you could talk about it.
Yeah. So as at the time I was at Macy's, there wasn't like any like full form training to tell you about what to expect as an application security engineer. But sometime late last year, Tanya Jinka, she's one of my mentors, very awesome, wonderful person. I just did a podcast with her like 2 or 3 months ago on OWASP DevSlop. She's a prominent voice in application security, and almost everything I know, I learned from the courses that she put forward and the book that she released called Alice and Bob Learn Application Security. So now when I want to point people who are like getting into application security, I'm like, hey, get Tanya Jinka's book. Very informative. It captures everything you need to know as a fresher, as a newbie coming into the field. It just gives you a full idea. Tanya Jinka.
Can I butcher that? She does the purple, it's like a purple book, and it's like
yeah,
I have that. Janka, I'm sorry, I butchered her last name. But yeah, so I definitely have that book. I haven't gotten into it yet, but I know who you're talking about. I feel like, does she have the We Hack Purple? Is that the same lady?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is a community. That's a community that she has built, where like all InfoSec professionals, you're welcome to come in and just help and build each other up. So that's a wonderful community to also be a part of as well. So Tanya is very, very awesome. And I told her everywhere I go, whenever I'm talking Appsec, there is no way my story about Appsec will be complete without mentioning Tanya Jinka and her contributions to, the course, the book, and how it has, formed me into the person that I am today.
Yeah, that's amazing. So someone asked, what's the difference between Appsec engineering and pen testing?
Yeah, good question. So, as we all know, pen testing is one of the most glorified fields in cybersecurity. I mean, talk about you've seen NCIS, you've seen hackers, or one show that tends to represent hacking in some kind of light. Everything you see them doing, where it's like they're typing on the computer with some kind of command line with green fonts, and the whole screen is like, boom, I got him. That's penetration testing right there. So penetration testing, you are licensed, or you're given permission to take advantage of the weaknesses in a company's systems, the network, their servers, their infrastructure, and everything. And once you've prodded and you've probed and you found everything you feel you can find within a specified time frame, of course, the time frame is always there. Then after that, you draft up a report of your findings, letting them know these are the things we found, and you rate them according to whatever skill you have. So you may have like high, medium, low, if that's your skill, or critical, high, medium, lows. That's a skill you also probably see around. So pen testing is basically, legally performing intrusive hacking activities on a company's infrastructure. This is not a, don't quote, you can quote me anywhere if you like, but this is not like a full form definition. This just summarizes what you'll be seeing in penetration testing. So you are essentially legalized, you're permitted to like attack an infrastructure like as if you were a malicious attacker. You probe and find everything you can, and then write up a report on your findings, why you think each of these findings are the way they are according to the rating, and what can be done to mitigate or to prevent such happenings. So that's pen testing. Application security takes that a bit further. It looks at application security it covers a wider base than that. So what pen testing does is referred to as red teaming. Then you have blue teaming. These are the people, the IT support analysts, your incident response people, those whose task it is to build networks and systems to where it is secure and pretty much frustrating for an attacker to get through to your crown jewels. So what Appsec does, it combines both the best of both worlds. Okay, we know how your infrastructure, your application, your software can be attacked if you had to act maliciously. Now, we also have to look at what we have on this side and determine how best to secure your applications, given the information we have here and all of the activities in between. So it's an ongoing thing. We're like, it can be attacked this way. This is how we can defend it. And then we also come up with practices to keep people in the loop, to keep security front of mind. So it's not like, hey, we've done this, boom, we're good. Oh no, we are continually, educating people on why we need to keep doing this. It needs to be a habit. And we are also, finding new things, looking for new ways to keep security top of mind, to keep our infrastructure and systems application even, more secure, better secure than they are. So that's the whole thing with Appsec, continuous improvement. It's not just I attacked you once, you fixed it, boom, we're good. Application security, there's that feedback loop. So one thing that you come across a lot is some people kind of confuse application security and software security. Like it sounds the same thing, but for many organizations you'll be working with, they mean almost different things. So application security comprises every activity that you do to make sure that you're building your software secure from the beginning and also securing it while it is in deployments. So you're talking about what is your engineering development lifecycle like. Then you look for points, insertion points in that cycle to build guardrails to prevent engineers from veering to the left or to the right in building code the wrong way, designing it in the wrong way. You're trying to keep them, in that secure gates. Right, so you do that, then when it has been deployed, it doesn't end. You're probing the application to be sure that the measures that were implemented in the beginning are still strong and holding up well. Then if there is an issue, boom, we have to go back to the beginning and figure out where did this go wrong? Was it in the design, the implementation? Was it something someone wrote? And in between all of these activities, you're also coming up with educational and awareness materials to say, hey, this happened. How could we have done better? These are the things we'll be doing from now on to keep security top of mind. And just so that when engineers are writing code, they are thinking, oh, wait, I wrote this thing. Did I write this in the right way or something? So in a nutshell, penetration testing just deals with attacking and finding issues. Application security is about attacking, finding issues, finding ways to defend against them, and educating people about how to make some recurring issues a thing of the past. So you don't have these things happening every now and then.
So when you said that, it made me think of like secure DevOps. Do you consider yourself like on the development side of, I guess, the house when we look at like the software development lifecycle, right? We have people who are doing the development, right? And then we have people who usually do the testing, and then it goes out, and then we'll maybe have like a penetration tester, confirm that there's no issues, and then if so, it has to go back into development to fix, whatever it is, right? So would you consider the type of work that you do on the development team, or would you say that it's just isolated to maybe like ensuring like secure coding practices for the people who are actually doing the development?
Yeah, so that really depends on the kind of things you find yourself doing, the kind of unique problems that your org is looking to solve. So some orgs might be looking at, hey, our developers don't even think about security. What do we do to change that? Then you find out your work is focused a lot more around security awareness and training, secure coding, guidelines, secure development, and all of that. You're going to be working chiefly on the left, like at the very beginning of the development lifecycle. At some point, the security posture of the org, becomes better to where everyone is thinking security from the get-go. Once they're designing a software, they pull in security engineers to look at it and say, are we good here? Oh, we are good. Then your attention begins to shift that, okay, when we deploy this code, what kind of problems do we see? So an application security engineering work will span, all of these things. But depending on what issue is first and foremost for the org you're working for, you might be focusing on one part more than the other. But at different points in time, you find yourself doing each of these things. One thing about application security too is that it is not limited to the software that is being built. It also encompasses every part of the infrastructure that communicates with that software. Anywhere you have a software running, if it has to communicate with a load balancer, you have to think about what information is being sent. How does that communicate? Is there a way, is it built in a way that it fails in a safe way and stuff like that? So back to what I said about application security versus software security. So for many software security engineering roles, by definition, it is almost implied that a lot of the problems you'll be solving will be done through code. You'll be writing some kind of code to solve some kind of security problem. But application security, there is a more holistic approach. You're not just looking at software, you're also looking at the infrastructure surrounding it. So you may not necessarily be writing code all the time. And in fact, you may not even need to, because maybe your org is focused more on the infrastructure surrounding your application. How are they communicating securely? Are they sending the kind of data they're sending? Do we have enough protection protocols in place to make sure that this is being sent in a secure manner? So application security is more encompassing. One thing that Tanya mentions a lot is sometimes a lot of the security work that nobody wants to pick up, Appsec is the one that gets to do it. So it's like, this work doesn't fall under blue team, it doesn't fall under red team, it doesn't fall under governance, risk, and compliance either. Who else is left? Appsec. So that is another thing about Appsec security, application security I wanted to bring out.
So I see on your LinkedIn that you've got EJPT. I see you've done some coursework in Python, and I see that you've done some stuff as far as cloud computing. So are those the core skills for someone who wanted to get into application security? Like, I know you said that if you had it all to do over again, you definitely wouldn't do chemical engineering over again. So like if you were, I guess at the beginning of your career and you were interested in getting into application security engineering, what would be, I guess, the skill set that you think that you need in order to do well in the position? And how does things like the EJPT, for example, fall in, and I think that's like penetration testing, what you said is definitely not the same as application security engineering. So how do those skill sets, I guess, fit into, your day-to-day? And what makes you good at your job?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm going to talk about my thought process, when I was getting each of those certifications, before talking about what I think is the ideal thing, then hey, in the end, take my advice with a pinch of salt. What works for me may not necessarily work for you. You know where you are at this point in time. You know where your path is taking you. So you hear from this person, you hear from that person. So you pick from these people what it is about what they've said that makes sense to you and apply that to your own self. So the certifications I have the Security Plus. I have the EJPT. I also did courses on Coursera related to programming in Python. And I also recently got the AWS Cloud Practitioner course. So with the Security Plus, so why I did that because I did a master's. This was while I was doing my master's, right, in cybersecurity. So it was in my last semester. I had been applying for jobs for about 2 months at that time. So this was in September of 2018. And I wasn't getting the callbacks I wanted, So of course I'm like, okay, something is wrong here. Let me find out what's going on. boom, boom, boom. You probably need to do certifications. Then I'm like, okay, I'm new to this field. I can't do some of these advanced ones. Which ones can I do? What are some entry-level certifications I can do that will be able to show employers that I kind of have that beginner understanding of what it takes? So a couple of suggestions came up. The most affordable and the most comprehensive one I saw was Security Plus. So that was why I did Security Plus. So if you're trying to get into the field and you're thinking, hey, what are some entry-level certifications I can do just to put myself in front of the employer to say, hey, I have a basic understanding of what it takes, then the Security Plus is a good option. There is no guarantee that you will get a job if you have a Security Plus, although there are some government rules that actually request, hey, if you get a Security Plus, we're going to give you all the stuff. I wasn't aiming for a government job. I'm not a citizen. So that wasn't my aim at all. My aim was, how do I, what kind of thing can I do to show people that I have what it takes? So that was why I went for the Security Plus. I did get a couple of calls back, but it wasn't so much of an improvement over my previous experience. However, it validated the fact that I was on the right path, that I knew what I was doing, that I definitely had everything that I needed to succeed in the cybersecurity field, even if others didn't see it that way. So after that, I joined Macy's. Then sometime last year, I had been learning about e-learn security, INE, the people that that formulated the EJPT course. They also have a lot of other course offerings, by the way, very nice. So, and then I hang out with a lot of colleagues who are like in penetration testing. I had pen tester friends outside of work. I worked with the penetration testing team at work. When they would probe some of our applications and find some vulnerabilities, I'll have to present to the engineering team and tell them, these are the findings. We need to have them resolved according to our approved SLA and stuff. So at some point, I'm like, hey, I think I want to level up. I want to show that, I sometimes you get to this point where you just want to make a point to yourself, not necessarily to other people. So it's like, I'm familiar with the pen testing methodology. I've done a lot of CTS. I have lots of pen tester friends. So how do I show not just people now, but myself, that I really have like a good grasp of this thing? And that if I had to do like if I had to join a pen testing engagement, I wouldn't be lost. I would know where to do and where to look. So that was how the EJPT came up. I had to start from that low just because I wasn't super confident of my abilities. Pen testing is not something I do as a day job. So I'm like, okay, junior pen testing. All right, that is a good start. That kind of sounds roughly like where I should be, approximately. So that's why I did the EJPT. So if you're looking at a career in the penetration testing field, or you're in Appsec, you just want to show that, hey, you have some kind of idea of, like you have enough of an idea about penetration testing to be able to interact with penetration testers and convey that result adequately to engineering or GRC or whatever other team will need that information, then EJPT is a good start. If you know how to attack something, you definitely will have some kind of idea how to defend it. So finished with the EJPT, and then while I was at Macy's too, I was like, you know how there is this whole echo chamber where people are telling you you cannot succeed in security if you don't know how to code, which is not true, by the way. Not all security roles require you to have coding experience. And even in application security, you don't have to write code all the time. So coding helps. It's nice. It's a plus, but you don't need it to be successful in any security engineering field. And I mean that especially for Appsec. Software security, maybe, it depends. But for that kind of role, a lot of times the description is always necessarily looking for people that were once software engineers, because they know that they need that skill you had as a software engineer definitely to work as a software security engineer. So that was that whole thing then. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Even if I don't know how to write this code, at least I want to understand how to, read lines of code. When I say this thing, I can say, oh, wait, there's a problem here. And this is where I think the problem is. So in Appsec, it's not necessary for you to learn how to write code, but it is absolutely necessary for you to understand application logic. Any programming language you're giving, you should be able to determine source and sink, what is going on here, how this could go wrong. And that necessarily requires that you need to be able to understand, lines of code wherever you see it, because it's not even practical for you to learn all the languages, because who knows what language will be picked up next week or next month, or maybe you move to another company now. Your former company were doing Java, this other company is doing Golang. You're not going to subject yourself to that whole trip of learning. Like it is just impractical, basically. So the main thing is you understand code. Wherever you see it, you're able to pick out source and sync from where data enters, where it passes out, where it is being processed in the code, and what happens to it eventually. So yeah, so that was with the Python course I took and EJPT. Then as soon as I was moving to my new company, one of the things I found out I was lacking was a clear understanding of how cloud environment is, because previously my company was a pure Windows environment, everything on-prem. So, Windows Active Directory, you have the servers, you know how to access, you can access a Windows server and you look at the settings and play around. But with the cloud environment is different, especially with the shared responsibility model. So the reason why I took the AWS Cloud Practitioner course is to have a better understanding of, because many companies use AWS. So it only makes sense for me to have a better understanding of the offerings by AWS, how a company or anybody could, use this to build, effectively build out a whole infrastructure that serves them just as well as you'd have in an on-prem environment. So that was why I took the AWS CCP. So that was the reasoning behind all of those certifications I took. As for what you should be doing if you want to get into Appsec, there is no one certification or anything that will adequately prepare you for the field, or that will give you like, hey, once you do this, boom, if I hire you, I'm 100% guaranteed that you're going to knock everything out of the park. No, because Appsec, as with everything else, is a journey. There's a learning curve involved, So basically what I would recommend, is going through getting Tanya Jinka's book on Alice and Bob Learn Application Security. That is the only educational material I have seen till date that offers a comprehensive overview of what application security is about. So as a newbie going in, you know what to expect straight out of the gates. You're familiar with certain tools and methodology and some of the things you need to know to be able to communicate effectively with developers. So communication is important. You're not a silo unto yourself. Appsec is going to necessarily involve you communicating with a lot of people. There's going to be a lot of collaboration between your team and many teams: development, governance, risk and compliance, penetration testing, red team, blue team. So communication is very important. So what I recommend from the get-go is, hey, get Alice and Bob, the textbook, at the very least. Then if your employer, or if you're super flush and you want to get the full-fledged course itself, that is also great, because that one just walks you through the whole thing and you do practical stuff on there. So there's the book and there's the course itself. You can either go for one of them, and that in my opinion is enough to give you like a broad understanding of application security, what to expect going into the field. So that's what I would recommend personally. But outside of that, it's just, once you know what application security is about, you know all of the different teams you'll be interfacing with, you can decide, okay, what are some of the things that these teams work with? What are some of the common certifications there? It doesn't even need to be the high level ones, the low level ones, like I did with the EJPT, just so that when you're talking with someone in that field, they have a sense of, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. So that was the reasoning behind EJPT, so Appsec is just there. It's just what it is. There is no like, take this super duper application security beginner level certification and you're golden. But necessarily everything and anything you need to know surrounding Appsec, the materials, there are lots of blogs, articles out there that talk about application security and all of that. Those are the things you really need to like get your hands on and learn from. But now, thanks to Tanya Jinka, I would just recommend the book or the course if you feel well able to pay for that.
So someone had asked in the chat, can you recommend any resources to practice what you learned in your cert? So you mentioned the book and the course by Tanya Janka. What other, I guess, resources could people use to be able to learn application security?
Yeah. So one important part of application security has to do with, your web application necessarily. So anything you can learn, anything that will get you close to understanding web application security, either by hacking it or by learning to defend it, apologies, I'm being very generic here, but that is how I found most of the resources I use. I had to do research and stuff. But for the certifications I took, for Security Plus, for instance, I use LinkedIn Learning, but I hear that there are a lot of other good materials you can use. You can also, Professor Mesa is is a popular one for Security Plus. Then for EJPT, you only the course materials provided for the certification is sufficient enough. Whatever you're asked will not go outside of what you are taught in the course. Then for
so I just want to point out that the INE training for the EJPT is actually free. You just have to pay for the certification, which I think is maybe $200 after you finish the free coursework, but it's about 40 hours of coursework for you to do that piece. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. It's free. It's free, which is another wonderful thing that INE has done. I think the certification is also cheaper too. Might be half price now, $100 or something, but you can confirm that. Don't take my word for it. Then for the AWS Cloud Practitioner course, there are lots of resources around that. Even AWS, when you sign up for AWS, there's some free resources you're provided that can help you with that, but you can also source for other ones. The one I used was, I have an A Cloud Guru subscription, so that was what I used to study for the cloud certification course. I also used the AWS prep course on INE to study for that as well. So it's a very beginner level course. So if you've interacted with AWS in some sort of way, or you have a little bit of knowledge around it, if you take one of these, use one of these resources, you should ramp you up enough, to be able to take the exam and, like pass.
All right. So one of the things that I found helps me in my life as a penetration tester is the Portswigger Academy, right? To help, focus on that. So would that be considered? I mean, I do it for pen testing, information, but would that be considered something you can use for application security as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you work at a company whose chief product is deployed as a web application. You naturally want to learn, the kind of vulnerabilities that can be expected for a web application and how to defend against that. So that is actually a very good, excellent resource. Portswigger Academy, very good resource. Their web academy courses are like in depth and all. So it's very good. So what I said initially, when I said an important part of application security is web application security. So that's actually a really good resource for that, to learn web application security. So that's a really, thank you for pointing that out actually.
Yeah, so I just posted it in the chat, but it's called Portswigger Academy. It is free, but I mean, I know I use that myself for my penetration, testing, like, which, for web applications, if we're doing something that's web application related. So I've that's something I know I wish that if I could go back and tell, like, my baby hacker, when I first started, like, this is the stuff that you should work on, I would have definitely done Portswigger Academy more earlier. Yes, somebody else mentioned, oh yes, Ozzy says Pentester Labs. So Pentester Labs is definitely an excellent resource for, things in this area. So one of the things you mentioned at the beginning were that, typically when people tend to think about cybersecurity, they think about GRC, they think about pen testing. They don't necessarily think about application security. What do you think? I think are the pros of doing what you're doing, I guess, versus some of the other fields or other roles?
Yeah, so that is actually a really good question. Okay, so now being new to the field, I was just excited. I was just like, hey, cybersecurity is such a huge field. There's so many things I can do. Oh my goodness. I felt like I was in Candyland and I was being made to taste different types of candy, Snickers and many things. That was what it looked like to me. So I didn't even know what I wanted to be doing at first. All I wanted to do was to get my foot in the door. So my first role at Macy's, kind of put me in that it was an entry level role, but it put me smack like in the middle of application security. I didn't choose it. It chose me, is the way I'll put it. However, the reason why I have stayed in application security is because it is a role that requires collaboration with multiple different teams. So I like it because it helps me learn about other different fields. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't shoehorn me into like a single one field, like this is all you do, just do the one thing and that's it. I like that I get to talk to people on different things and work with them on different projects and learn about what they do. In line with who I am personally is that I like to have my hand in all the cookie jars, so to say. I just want to learn all the things. So that kind of agreed with the kind of person that I am, and that's why I'm still in application security. So if you're that kind of person who, you kind of like penetration testing, you don't exactly want to do that. You kind of like blue team, but you don't 100% want to do that. Then you can try Appsec because you'll be doing a little bit of both. And let's say also as a bonus, you don't mind talking to different people, educating people and doing some kind of awareness training. Then boom, Appsec is a sweet spot for you because it's not like you're not pigeonholed into the one thing like you have as a penetration tester or as a blue team person. So there is a variety in the kind of tasks you'll be doing on a day-to-day basis. Over time, there is some consistency around the things that you're expected to do. But the excitement for me there is that I get to work with different teams and I get to see what they're doing, how they're doing stuff. So if someone wants to talk to me as a GRC professional about third-party vendor trust, I'm able to raise certain questions that I was like, have you worked as a compliance analyst before? And I'm like, oh no, I just work with people who are compliance analysts, that kind of thing. So it can function like a pretender in many different functions. Like, hey, excuse me, are you a doctor? I am today. That sort of thing. So that's why I'm doing application security. So if you're that kind of person too, you like to have your hand in all the cookie jars, then try out Appsec. You never know where that will take you.
So you, I within Black Girls Hack, we have a lot of folks who are coming from different industries, right? So you talked about how you came from chemical engineering. I think you said that you did a job search for a while, and you needed ways to kind of point yourself, kind of like differentiate yourself amongst other people who are also applying for jobs, especially since you were coming from somewhere else. Do you have any tips to folks about how they can kind of like differentiate themselves to, I guess, stand out, especially like when you come from another industry, and or like another place, to help you to I guess kind of get into the field?
Yeah, I like that question just because one thing I've found in the cybersecurity field is that some of the professionals, some of the high level professionals or people you look up to, and you find out, hey, what did you do in school? 50% guarantee you is not going to be computer science. It's going to be something like library and information sciences. If you know InfoSec Sherpa, she's
I love Imposec Sherpa. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
That's okay. It's okay. Fangirling is allowed. So she's one of such people, and there are many other people too who come from other different fields and they find a home in cybersecurity. So cybersecurity has a home for everybody, irrespective of your background, your field. So one of the first things you want to do is you want to find out what are some of the things you've learned or some skills you've built in this other field that, you can use to draw parallels to what is done in any of the cybersecurity domains. For instance, my manager used to work in used to work as an EMT, I think. So in that role, incident response skills are very important. So one of the things they would say, so that experience kind of carried over into what they have been doing all this time in the security engineering field, incident response and everything. And there's something that they usually say sometimes about around incident response, something like if something to do with if there is no bleeding, the incident is manageable. So it comes from that experience, that sort of thing. And they are one of the most admirable people that I have actually met in the field. So that's the first thing. You want to sit down and think, what are some things I have learned in this other field that I can carry over into this field? How can I draw parallels between this and that? Because that the creativity involved in making that, in drawing that parallel can be very insightful in helping to place you where you need to be. So once you are able to find those parallels, then the next thing is to market yourself using those skills. You can meet some resume writers who are really good at this. One person I know who is really good at that is Katia Dean. So she's very good at that, and she's very passionate about this. So that's one thing I would advise. In addition to that, if you find yourself, okay, I think I'm a match for this field or that field, as much as it sucks, it will help you to find certifications. Once you found a field that you're a match for, find certifications that can portray you as having the necessary skills required to do this job. Because there is this whole thing where I want to hire an entry-level person, but how am I sure they're not going to mess something up? And that comes from a mentality of, security is important for sure. And depending on the criticality of the industry you work in, it can be, that can be magnified. But no matter how critical or how super duper secure it has to be, there is always some room for learning. It is not impossible to create a space for someone who is willing to learn to come in and, learn from the other greats ahead of them. So that is up to the job companies and whatever. So that's by the wayside. Anyway, so you've identified the place you want to be in. So you want to look for certifications in that field that you can do, that can help you learn more about the field and also kind of help you draw on the knowledge you have. Certifications are just a way of showing, okay, so I've done this thing. That means I kind of have an idea of how this field works. It doesn't necessarily mean that, if this person has a certification, then boom, they are good for it. Because you have college degrees where, as part of the curriculum, you're required to pass the certification. So things happen in that sense, where people are like, this is a do or die affair. I have to pass, even if it means taking question dumps from somewhere. That's one thing. Then another thing to do is network with other professionals in the field where you want to be in. So if you're part of a group like Black Girls Hack, or if you're part of We Hack Purple community, or just reach out to random people on LinkedIn who are like, okay, you want to be a compliance analyst, reach out to other senior compliance analysts in the field. On LinkedIn, send them a message. Hey, I'd like to connect. I'm trying to get into this field, and I just thought to add you so that we can also brainstorm on a couple of other things and stuff like that. You'll be surprised how many people will respond in a wonderful way. And, who knows if that lead will help you to your next job. I didn't know about the networking part because I was purely introverted. I wasn't even using LinkedIn as much. So that was why it probably took me as long as it did to find my first role. But networking is very important, being part of groups, volunteering for some of these groups, meeting new people. You never know where that opening might come from, and above all, that desire to learn is one of the things I think many employers look for. Like, you're new to the field and you just have this hunger to soak everything up. You're just being a sponge, trying to learn all the things. That helps you get into the field and it helps you to stay in the field, but over time, what that looks like will change because you've worked in the field for a long time. You kind of have an idea what it looks like. So it's not like as if you lose that desire to learn or anything, but you're probably not going to be doing much work in your home lab if you're doing that right now, just because life, however, you have that experience to go off of, and that curiosity that drives you to learn more, will constantly keep you doing research outside of work to try and solve some of the challenges you're facing at work and stuff. So in summary, find transferable skills that align with the field you want to be in. Once you found your field, try and look for certifications that you can afford, that you can do. And the most important of all, network with other professionals in the field. So that's what I think.
I think that all of that is excellent advice, and I don't think I could have possibly said it better. We're coming up here at the end of our hour. I want to thank you, but I ask all of my guests who come to Bring a Hacker to Work Day, what is your plan for world domination? What is next for you? What does the future look like for you?
Yeah. I'm here in this field. I'm loving application security so far. There is no telling where that will take me. I might still be here in the next 10, 15 years in application security. Who knows? Or I might find something else more interesting. Who knows? But I'm here for now. So my focus is just learning as much as I can, and given the challenges that I faced going into the field, I try to help others who are seeking guidance, trying to get into the field. Like, hey, I like cybersecurity. I want to get in. I'm confused. I'm not getting any calls for interviews or something. The first thing is to check, what have you done? What have you been up to? Have you talked to anyone? And then work from there, because a lot of times the view you have from the outside looking in is different from the view you actually get when you get in. So it's it is our responsibility, those of us who are in here who know what it looks like, to actually help others who are trying to get in, because whether we like it or not, security needs all the help that it can get, and it starts from the entry level. So I do that in the meantime, and I'm just learning all I can on the job, because I'm hardly any I haven't arrived. I'm still getting there. I'm still going, I'm still heading to wherever I'm going. So I'm just enjoying the journey and imparting to others what I have learned, in the hopes that they also too can learn from that and kind of chart their own path. So that's basically it. I guess I don't know if that's how you do world domination, but that's what I'm doing right now, because I don't have plans to rule any country or anything like that. Just trying to help in my own way.
not so much to rule a country. It's more so like just something that we use to describe, like, what's the best way for you to kind of like, what do you see for your future? How are you going to leave an impact on this world so that it'll be better than when you left it? What is it that you're going to do, I guess, kind of like to make your mark, more so than it is like, I'm going to take over a small country and rule it for evil purposes.
Buy an island or something. Go to space. Yeah, I just try to the mistakes I make along the way. I just try to use my journey to inspire others, by doing podcasts like this, trying to help others who are coming, because it was difficult for me. So I understand how difficult it might be for others, So just using your pain to minister onto others is the way I'll put it.
All right, that's amazing. I just want to thank you for coming out. Does anyone have any questions for Ozzy before we drop off? You can type them in a chat or mute yourself if you like.
I can ask one question.
Sure, shoot.
So the question I have is in regards to work experience. So right now I'm doing a master's degree in cybersecurity, and I'm looking to get a role in cybersecurity, specifically as a security analyst. But the issue that I have is that I don't have work experience as a security analyst, and I'm not really sure what steps to take in order to get the work experience in that field. And I'm not sure what is the best way to obtain work experience as a security analyst.
Yeah. Understandable. So, being a security analyst means a lot of things to a lot of people, right? Some people don't know that there's cybersecurity has many domains until they actually get in. So when you say security analyst, it's like, are you thinking of being a security analyst on the penetration testing team or on the blue team or on whatever team that might be? So you need to find what domain you're going to fit in.
I'm thinking blue team.
Blue team. Okay, that's good. Then, okay, so now you know you want to be on the blue team. So now you look at what are some of the activities that will be done on the blue team side. On the blue team side, for instance, oh, if you're security analyst on the blue team, you might be working in a SOC center. So you'll be looking at SIEMs and analyzing alerts and stuff like that. So you want to look for trainings. There are lots of free resources or free trainings around, how to configure a SIEM or how to analyze logs and stuff like that. So any educational resource around that is going to help you incredibly. And anything you take in that regard, put it on your resume. Like for instance, oh, you did this adversary emulation training by Attack IQ, boom, put it on your resume. Or you did security blue team level 1 certification, boom, put it on your resume. If let's say you took a course that is structured according to different things, like, oh, capturing SIEM alerts, you worked with security onion, you worked with log reading, blah, 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 blah. You probably have a section in your resume called tools and skills or something. Under tools, put everything on there. Have you worked with virtual machines? Boom, put everything on there. As an entry-level person, I know how they say you have to tailor your resume to the role you want, but as an entry-level person, you're trying to catch as many fishes as you can. So I would personally, what I did and what I would suggest is put everything on there. Everything you've worked with that you know is related to this role that you're looking for, boom, put it on there. So that's how, so you don't necessarily have to work at a company to get that experience, but if you take trainings and courses, that have helped you learn about these things, and if you practice them in your home lab, put it on there. I had a friend who graduated school last year, he hadn't had like a security internship or anything like that, but he had done a lot of work in his home lab. We talked about it. He would show me his network rack and stuff. I'm like, yo, dude, put everything on your resume. So he put all of the software he has worked with, all of the tools he has worked with, just like that. And he got a really fantastic job straight out of school. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is every experience matters to you as an entry-level person. It doesn't have to be in a corporate environment. If you're doing it in your home lab, if you're doing it online as part of a webinar or something, and you can highlight all of the things that you've learned under tools, certifications, or skills, or programming languages, do that. So does that answer your question?
It sure does. Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, so we have one last question, so we can get done on time. What do you expect as an entry-level versus a mid-level application security engineer to have skill-wise?
So entry-level versus mid-level. I'm not even mid-level yet, really. I'm getting there, but I'm not exactly entry-level, so I'm somewhere in the middle. So as an entry-level, at the basic level, you want to understand software engineering practices. What does a general software development lifecycle look like? What are the different patterns of programming? It helps. You just want to learn things that will enable you speak to software development, what that looks like and stuff like that. If you know how to program in language, that's also good, but that is not necessarily part of the deal. You want to know that. You also want to learn about some of the tooling that you can use to actually run security tests, like static application security tools, abbreviated as SAST, dynamic application security tools, DAST, and stuff like that, and how you would implement them at different points in the development lifecycle. So there's the security development lifecycle, there's the software development lifecycle, there's the secure software development lifecycle. So the secure development lifecycle is just the software development lifecycle plus security. So it's going to have injection points where you can put in these checks for security and all of that. Then all of the activities involved at each of those different points, you need to be able to talk about it, like, hey, at the design stage, we do design reviews, threat modeling and stuff like that. Then at the development stage, we do a scanning, we scan the code for stuff. You're scanning for third-party libraries and stuff. Then after deployment, you're doing DAST scanning, you're doing pen testing. So at the beginner level, you should be able to know that. But if you don't know, you don't know. That is the annoying thing. And that's why I recommend Tayajinka's book and the course if you can do it. That's beginner level. Now, mid-level, when you get to mid-level, you know these things. and you've actually practiced, so you have work experience in it, you are now aware of the different nuances involved. It is at this point you realize that it's good to use SaaS, but SaaS can produce a lot of noise. So what do you do in that case? So you're familiar with some of the nuances involved with, implementing security in the software development lifecycle. You're also aware that these things that you've learned about SSDLC. Those are not the only things you can do. There's more you can do to better that. And each of these things are tailored to the environment you find yourself, basically. But at the beginner level is enough to know that this is there. Mid-level, you understand that there are nuances to it.
All right, so thank you for that. We are a little bit over. I apologize for that. I just wanted to know, are there any ways that folks can connect with you on social media or LinkedIn? Do you want to share any of that information if folks would like to connect with you?
Yeah. Let me type my LinkedIn link right here. I hope I get it right this time. Oops.
I am connected to her on LinkedIn, so if you can't find her, you can stalk my my friends list. All right, so Ozzy, thank you so much for coming out and hanging with us today on Bring a Hacker to Work Day. I appreciate you for spending your Sunday with us, and we appreciate everything that you talked to us about today. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Sunday too, and I will see you around the Slack. Have a good one, everyone.
All right, bye everyone.